Hey Emerson, it's Zach in Atlanta. Thanks for doing this. Just wondering, last time you played a 9 o'clock game and the challenges of getting up so early and the timing, that's something you're obviously not used to in a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it in youth days, when I was younger, and obviously a tournament would last the whole weekend, that kind of thing. But obviously the heat's going to be a factor going into it. We've been training in a little bit, and obviously training at 7 compared to 9 is a little bit different. But I think that comes with the tournament itself. It's a challenge for everyone. Everyone's kind of getting back into fitness and game fitness, so it's just another little challenge, but something I think we can overcome.
Hey, Emerson, it's Doug. I'm curious, how much weight did you lose Saturday night from the beginning of that game to the end with the heat, the humidity, and all the running that you did?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely different down here with the humidity. Obviously first game back too, first real game, so obviously covering a lot of ground, or it feels a lot more ground than usual, just because it's first game back. So I think that's definitely a challenge for all the teams here. Unless you're in Florida, or unless you're Orlando or Miami, I guess they're used to it. But I think it's good that we're getting adapted to it quick. I mean, we've been here for about a week now, a little over a week. So hopefully the 9 o'clock kickoff doesn't affect us as badly as it would have.
Hey Emerson, this is Felipe. How are you, man?
Yeah, good, thanks.
So last year, I mean, the roster was a little bit different, especially midfield, and you were a little bit higher up the field, kind of in a more familiar role than what you were used to at Bournemouth. On Saturday night, it was a little bit more box to box, like you mentioned. There was a lot of running involved. How are you feeling in that type of role, and what needs to improve, not just for yourself, but just the core of that midfield in order for that to work?
Yeah, obviously, the fitness was different. Personally, I've been coming back a little later than others. Back in Atlanta, I picked up COVID earlier on in the month, and had time out, obviously isolating. So I'm kind of just getting back into the swing of things. I've been negative the whole time here, so everything's been fine. But I'm playing catch up a little bit, so. During the game, it was obviously quite tough for me physically, so I couldn't be probably as box to box as I normally would. But I think overall the team did pretty well. Obviously, conceded chances, things like that normally we wouldn't have if we're sharper. But in terms of midfield, I think Mo did a great job. Doing his thing. He got on the ball quite a lot, broke up plays. So overall, I think it was pretty decent.
Hey, Emerson, this is Justin from Fox 5. I want to ask, since you mentioned it, what was your experience with COVID-19? What was that like, and the whole process of being out, symptoms, and then ultimately getting cleared and getting back?
Yeah, I mean, I was asymptomatic the whole time, but obviously the testing picked it up, which is, credit to all the testing protocols we had to go through. It was obviously frustrating just being away from the team and things like that, but it was necessary, and I knew that, and it was always gonna be feel like a long process, just isolating by yourself. It's tough, but the fact that I felt great and everything was the good part about it, and now I can just focus on the football, which is nice.
Is it scary at all as a professional athlete when, I don't know how closely you follow and read the things of, you got the stuff now with the respiratory and the cough and people going to the hospital, but there are questions of, will there be lingering effects? And, you run miles a game for a living. Regular people might be less impacted. Is it scary kind of following that stuff?
I try to focus on what I can control, and that's, I listen to all the people at the club. I listen to the doctors, things like that. And, they felt like it was perfectly, once I got the negatives and everything and got consistent negatives, they were very happy for me to come back into training. And, I listen to the professionals and make sure I do all the things I can to prevent anything ever happening again. And that's what it's been like down here the whole time, and I think that shows from obviously now there's not many cases at all anymore in the whole tournament, so I think we're doing a great job.
Emerson, I just want to kind of get your thoughts on Mo Adams, playing next to Mo Adams, what you thought of his game, how he played Saturday.
Yeah, I thought he did well. He's been training really well. Our partnership's quite good. Obviously, he's a little bit deeper normally, and he's a great ball winner and very active defensively, and obviously can get forward as well, as you saw. So he's a great teammate. He's a really hard worker, and I was just really pleased that he got the chance and played well.
Hey, Emerson. Going back to Saturday night, I've talked to different guys, and they all kind of say different things, whether it was stepping out on the field and then everything felt normal, or that it took them 20 minutes because it's Orlando, it's a weird circumstance, a lack of time to kind of warm up, no fans. Like, what did Saturday night really feel like for you? And did it feel weird? Did it take you a few minutes to get into the game? Was there something that stood out to you as something you'll kind of remember for the rest of your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's different than any other game I've had professionally anyway. Obviously, no fans. You kind of, the time we get before the game isn't as long. It's quite quick. And so you have to adapt to all those things as it comes. But, I think just not having fans in general is a different kind of challenge, even if they're away fans or home fans. Normally you just hear some sort of noise, so it's different when you can hear all the players, hear the opposing players and all the coaches and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of getting into the game, as soon as it started, you kind of just focus.
I'm curious, do you hear instruction from the manager more? Obviously you can hear more without fans there, but it's like, is he trying to give more instruction on, like, just giving players a heads up on who to mark or that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is you can hear a lot more from your teammates as well. Sometimes in packed crowds, you have to shout, from 10 yards away to get your point across, whereas here you can hear things very clearly. And, if for a midfielder like me, if your center back tells your right shoulder, it's very easy to take that in a lot quicker. Whereas obviously with the crowd, it's a little bit difficult. So, it's kind of interesting hearing all those things during the game. And obviously if Frank is on the sideline and wants to change a formation or change something, it's very easy for him to get his point across. So I think in that way it's actually quite interesting aspect of the game that's changed. But yeah, it's still strange.
Hey, Emerson, it's Doug. I'm sorry, I need to ask you one more question about the COVID situation. Was there contact tracing done? Do you have any idea from where you got it?
I have no idea. I pretty much the whole team, from what I know, has kept pretty simple lives since all this started. Grocery stores and basically home, training ground, things like that. So it could have been it could have been anything. Could have walked by someone and just ended up getting it. So it's just one of those things. But the good thing is, at the training ground, it's all very protocol driven, and mask in, mask out, and not even allowed at the building at the beginning stages of it. So I was confident, the whole club was confident that the training ground was a safe place, and even though I got it, I feel like it wouldn't have been from there.
Emerson, the first half, clearly Red Bull they pressed really hard, they pressed really high in those first opening minutes that got that goal. It looked like you and Mo had a little bit of trouble finding the ball. That improved throughout the match as you guys got more settled in. But looking back at those opening minutes, just as a central midfield pairing, what have you two talked about?
Yeah, I think that was always going to be Red Bull's plan, was to kind of shut down the middle, make it tough on the center backs to play out. Obviously, they play a pressing game, which they did last year the same way. So, we knew as a center midfield pair that it would be difficult just to get on the ball, turn, and have an easy day. It was always going to be difficult to find the spaces you normally find, because that was obviously what they were trying to stop. So, personally, I tried to find space a little bit wider, almost on the sides of them as the ball switched, and I think Mo did it a few times also. And we were looking for the switch. The switch was on a lot more than we actually found. Obviously watching the video, it's very clear. So we talked about it, and we understood what we could get better at and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's the first game back, so we didn't expect anything perfect. But we definitely saw some things we can work on as a pair.
Going back to you talking about the switching. Mm-hmm. After the game, Guzan said, the long balls, that's not who we are. Mm-hmm. I'm curious how those two ideas kind of go together.
Yeah, it's it's when it's on, I mean, there's obviously moments where you slow it down, you build through the middle and things like that. But, sometimes you have to almost sacrifice a ball like that, which is obviously not the way we play normally. Sacrifice a switch, which actually in the actual game, it was open quite a lot. You sometimes have to sacrifice it in order to get up the pitch, get in their half, and then you can kind of play your game, because they play a pressing style. They try to make it difficult. I think as a team, we could have done that a little bit better, just put the emphasis on them a little bit more. But we've gone over it as a team. We've watched video, and, numerous people at different points, and, hopefully that'll help on the next game.
And then Frank, the first question in today's press conference kind of went back to a lot of the greatest hits from last year about the lock on, when you lose the ball, things like that.
Yeah.
Could you feel in the game we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, and then recognize it in the film session?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely recognized it in film. Sometimes, first game back, it's hard to get that awareness immediately. You kind of, I felt it in the game for sure. Sometimes a little bit harder to fix it as it's going on, especially relaying it to everyone at the same time. So, it's something we discuss after the game. It's part of the way we play normally, part of our identity normally. So, it's something we all agreed on, that we could do that much better. Hopefully we can provide that next game.